Daf Samach Amud Beis will begin Samach Amud Aleph, 7 lines from the bottom. Ahu Yanuka Dishtabu Chamima. There was an 8-day-old baby. There was an 8-day-old baby that they had to perform the mitzvah of Milah, and it was on Shabbos. In those days, you needed warm water. It was considered a sakana without warm water for the Milah. They had to be kind of the mitzvah's Milah, but they needed the warm water. The water spilled out. And then the question was, how are they going to be able to get the water for the Milah on Shabbos? Now, there was no water there. The case was talking about there's two chatzeros side by side. There are houses in one, house in another. They both owned to the chatzeros. These chatzeros were open to each other, but they were not ma'arev one with the other. The child was, for instance, in this one, they had no warm water in this chatzer, but in the other one, they did have warm water. Now, Rava was in this chatzer, so his house opened to this chatzer. They had warm water. So the question is, can the people from this chatzer bring the warm water over to their chatzer? Now, there was no Eruv, so how could they do it? So Rava said, so he said, remove all my kalim from my house into the back house. So this was his chatzer, his house was here, and behind his house was the women's quarters. So he said, remove all my kalim from my house, bring it to the back quarters. I'll move into the back, into one of the apartments in the back. So I won't have my kalim here. And the idea is he was going to be mevatel his rishus in this chatzer to the other people. He won't be living in the house in his house that opens to the chatzer. So therefore, there's no concern that after he's mevatel rishus, he'll take kalim from his house to the chatzer. He'll be mevatel his rishus in the chatzer, and therefore he will remove himself, and he won't aser on the other people, and then they can get the water for the baby. So he said, she removed my kalim from the men's area to the back to the women's, and I'll go to the back area, and therefore there's no concern that after I'm mevatel rishus that I'll take my kalim back into the chatzer. And I will be mevatel my rights in the chatzer. So therefore, I won't aser on them, and they can carry the water to their houses. Omerle Ravina l'Rava v'Hamer Shmuel ein bittul rishus mechatzer lechatzer. But Shmuel said that you cannot be mevatel from one chatzer to another chatzer. So the baby was in this chatzer, for instance. Rava was in this chatzer. You can't be mevatel rishus from one chatzer to the next. You want to allow the people from this chatzer to get the water. That means you're being mevatel the rishus in one chatzer to them. So therefore, the people Rava, who is in this, who has rishus of this chatzer, he's removing himself. He's no longer considered to be a resident, and he won't aser. But Shmuel said you can't be mevatel from one chatzer to another. So he said, Rava said, I'm not Rav Yochanan regarding this. I don't hold like Shmuel. I hold like Rav Yochanan. Damar yesh bittul mechatzer lechatzer, and he says there is bittul mechatzer lechatzer. Well, if you don't hold, if you Rava do not hold like Shmuel, then why do you have to do this whole process of moving into the back area? Stay in your place, v'nifta lehuladitu, and be mevatel rishus, be mevatel your ownership, your rights to the other people who need the water, and then let them go and back and be mevatel back to you, and then you can resume carrying in the chatzer. You're moving into the back area because you're mevatel rishus, and you're removing yourself from the chatzer, and therefore you can't carry from your house to the chatzer. So you're moving all your items to the back area so that you don't live in that house anymore, and you won't carry into the chatzer. Well, why is that a problem? be mevatel your rishus to the chazer to them, and then when they take the water, let them take the water, and then let them be mevatel back to you, and then you can resume using the chazer, and then you can carry from your house to the chazer. The Omar Rav mevatel v'chayzer mevatel. Rav said you could be b'chayzer mevatel. So why is the problem? Why do you have to move out of your house? He said, no, b'ha'ak Shmuel's really. He said, regarding this, I hold like Shmuel. And regarding this, I hold like Shmuel says, no, once you're mevatel, you can't be mevatel again. So regarding this, I hold like Shmuel. So therefore, I hold like Rav Yochanan that you can be mevatel l'chaser, but I hold like Shmuel that once you're mevatel, you can't reclaim it, so I have to move out. Frankly, aren't they interdependent? Aren't they connected one with the other? My time what's the reason that you can't be mevatel and then have it reclaimed and they have it mevatel back to you? La mishum the came the bottle rishus. Isn't that so? Because once you're mevatel rishus, it's dakli gamri. Isn't it so that once you mevatel your rishus, you're considered no longer a resident over here, and therefore the other people want the people you mevatel to them. Now they can't be mevatel back to you because you can only mevatel to someone who's a resident. And once you're mevatel, you are no longer a resident over here, and that's why ein chayzer mevatelim. So aren't they interconnected? So lav mishum dekim the bottle rishus. Once you're mevatel rishus, you've removed yourself from this chatzar completely. You're considered no longer to be a resident. Now, if you're no longer a resident, what's the problem? Well, because but if you hold that you could be mevatel, you don't have to be a resident. So what's the problem of being mevatel? So therefore, therefore, you shouldn't have been able to be mevatel in the first place, to be mevatel to the people in the chatzar. The reason you can't l'chayr that you can't be mevatel is once you're mevatel, you're no longer a resident. You're no longer a resident, and they can't be mevatel it back to you. Doesn't that show you that you're not mevatel? You can't be mevatel l'chatzar. So aren't the two connected? How can you say that you could be mevatel l'chatzar, but you can't be mevatel l'chatzar? He says no. Hasam hainu taima. He says, why do we say you can't be chayzer mevatel? It's not for that reason. It's they're not really interdependent. They're not interconnected. Really, I'll tell you is that because really theoretically you should be able to be chayzer mevatel. You should be theoretically allowed to do it, but it looks like a chuchat lula. It looks like something people make like a joke, and people make fun of it. What, you're mevatel and now you take it back? So it seems like we're afraid that the people will then look down upon it and not treat the institution of bittul with proper respect. So that's why you can't do it. But theoretically, you should be able to do it. So therefore, he says, I hold that mevatel mechatzal chatzar. I hold like Rav Yochanan, but I also hold like Shmuel in this regard that ain't mevatel mevatel because we're afraid it'll look like a chuchavet lula. People will make fun, they'll deride the takanas chachamim. Gufa Rav Amar mevatel chayzer mevatel. Rav said that you can mevatel, and then they can mevatel back to it. Shmuel Amar ein mevatel chayzer mevatel. Shmuel says you can't. Lema Rav Shmuel beplukte Rabban Rabbi Lezer kamiflagi. Let's say this machlekes is totally on the machlekes of Rabbi Lezer and Rabbanan. Now, by way of introduction, first of all, as Rashi explains, the Ritva asks on this because it's not consistent with the Gemara that we just had. But the way Rashi explains is we're not going to with the mahalach that we just said, and we are not saying that the two machlekes, whether mevatel mechatzal l'chatzar or mevatel mechayzer mevatel, are connected, and we're saying that right now we're going with the mahalach that they are not connected with each other, and they're separate machlekasim. And we're saying that Rav also agrees that ein mevatel mechatzer l'chatzer. That Rav agrees with Shmuel that you cannot be mevatel mechatzer l'chatzer. So that's the approach which we were going with now. That they both agree that ein mevatel mechatzer l'chatzer. Then the issue is about chayzer mevatel is the person considered to be a member of this chatzer, or do we say once he's been mevatel rishus, he's no longer considered to be a resident of the chatzer? And that's the issue, as we'll explain in a moment. Now, the second point of introduction is the machlokes Rav Eliezer and the Rabbanan. The question over here is, when a person is mevatel his rishus, that he has his rights that he has in the chatzer, is he also mevatel his rishus from his house? So therefore, the recipients of this right, so a person was vatal his rishus in the chatzer, those recipients, they can carry from their house to the chatzer. Can they also carry from his house, from the donor's house to the chatzer? The Rabbanan say they can't. The Rabbanan say that the person who's mevatal's rishus, his own mevatal rishus he has in the chatzer, but he's not mevatal the rishus of his house. So the recipients cannot carry from his house to the chatzer. Rabbi Eliezer says he's mevatal completely. He's mevatal the rishus in the chatzer, and he's mevatal the rishus of his house. So the people that he's mevatal it to, they can carry from their houses to the chatzer, and also to carry from his house to the chatzer. So therefore, Lema Rav Shmuel pluk the Rabbanan Rabbi Eliezer kamiflik. The Rav the Omar Kirabanan. The Rav who says that one who's mevatel is chayzer mevatel. So now, again, we're going on the premise that everyone holds, that even Rav holds, that you're not mevatel rishus mechatzer l'chatzer. You have to be a resident of the chatzer in order to be mevatel rishus. So Rav who says, let us say that Rav holds like the Rabban. But Rav holds like the Rabbanan, so therefore he holds, even though this person was mevatel his rishus that he has in the chatzer, but he was not mevatel his rishus in the house, so he wasn't mevatel in ganzen, and therefore we don't say he's considered like a member of another chatzer. We don't say he's considered a non-resident over here. He only has given up his rights in the chatzer, but not in the house. Therefore, mevatel, because he's not considered like a member of another chatzer. Now again, Rav agrees that ein mevatel mechatzer l'chatzer, but this over here in this case, just because he's mevatel his rishus in the chatzer, he's not considered like a member of a different chatzer, so he can claim it back because it's not considered mechatzer l'chatzer. Ushmul damer Rabbi Eliezer. And Shmuel holds like Rabbi Eliezer, and he holds that the person, then he holds like the person when he's given up his mevatel his rishus in the chatzer, he has been mevatel his rishus in the house. So he's mevatel in ganzen. So therefore, he's considered to be a member of a different chatzer. And therefore, Shmuel says, you can't be mevatel because this person, once he's mevatel, he's removed completely from this chatzer. He's considered no longer a resident of this chatzer, and ein mevatel mechatzer l'chatzer. Rav says no, it's not necessarily so. Anadam lefil Rabbi Eliezer. I can go even according to Rabbi Eliezer. And therefore, even though he is considered to be over here, we do say he's mevatel in ganzen, and he's mevatel the rishus in the house, but nevertheless mevatel chayzer mevatel. Why? Because arkan loy kam Rabbi Eliezer hasam mevatel rishus chaser rishus beisay bitol. Even though Rabbi Eliezer says you're mevatel in ganzen, he's mevatel rishus in the chaser and the house. That's mishum debayis v'loy chaser loy dayer inch. Because once he can't be in the chaser, then he can't properly live in the house either, because he can't properly live in the house without having use of the chatzer. In those days, the houses were small. The chatzer was an essential part of living in the house. So if you don't have rishus in the chatzer, you cannot properly live in the house. You're mevatel rishus in the house as well. that doesn't mean, yes, he's mevatel as a rishus in the house, but that doesn't mean that he's removing himself completely, that consider him to be a non-resident, and he is considered like a member of a different chotzer. He says, I agree that he's mevatel l'chotzer, and he can even be going according to Rav Lezer, who says he's mevatel rishus in the chotzer and the house, but he's not a member of a different chotzer. Ushmuel Amar Anad Hamefil Karabban. Shmuel says I can even go according to the Rabbanan. And Kanlei Karabban and Hasan the Rabbanan only said it over there. They said that a person only is mevatel the rishus in the chotzer, and he's not mevatel the rishus in the house. So therefore, he's still considered to be in the house, but at Kanlei Hasan Milamai the bottle. We don't assume that he's mevatel the rishus in the house, because what he's mevatel, what he said he's mevatel, we accept. When he didn't say he's mevatel, he didn't say he's mevatel the rishus in the house, so there's no reason to assume that he was. He was mevatel the rishus in the chotzer, we accept it. But he didn't say he's mevatel the rishus in the house, so no reason to assume that he was. But but for he was mevatel it completely, and therefore he was mevatel rishus on the chotzer. Legami the chotzer, he's considered to be a non-resident, and he's considered to be not in this chotzer. So therefore, in mevatel him because he's considered not in this chotzer. You can't be mevatel to him. Well, let's say that it's like the following: machlekes tanoi. Mishan also rishus, someone who gave rishus, he was involved with rishus. And then he took items from the house to the chotzer. So whether it's shoygig or mezid, he answers. So he reclaimed what he gave. He took it back. So therefore he answers it. And therefore the bittul, he unwound the bittul. That's what Rameir said. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'mezid Eiser, he only answers b'mezid, b'shoygig ain't Eiser, but not b'shoygig. So what's the machlek? It's my law, b'akamifligi. The Marser mevatel m'chayz mevatel. The Rameir holds that you can be vatel and you can be vatel back. So therefore, if he now carried into the chotzer, from his house to the chotzer, yes, he was mevatel. But since you're mevatel m'chayz mevatel, he claimed it back, he took it back. And you could be mevatel m'chayz mevatel, so he unwound the bittul. Umar Savar ain't mevatel m'chayz mevatel. And Rabbi Yehuda says that no, you can't. So therefore you can't. So therefore he took it out b'shoygeg. You're not mevatel m'chayz mevatel, and therefore it's mutter to carry. The bittul still remains intact. However, if it was b'mezid, if you did it b'mezid, then notwithstanding then chayzer mevatel chayzer, but we say that since there was no kinyan on the bittul, and since he b'mezid intentionally wanted to take it back, we say that the initial bittul was not binding. So is this therefore not the machlokes? Doesn't this depend on vatel chayzer mevatel? Omar Rabachim Batachlim Yishmei Derova. He says no, they're not connected. Two machlokes are not connected. The kulei alma ein mevatel, the chayzer mevatel. Really, I'll tell you that everyone holds you're mevatel. You cannot be chayzer mevatel. Once you're mevatel, you're considered to be not part of this chotzer, so you cannot reclaim the rights. So therefore, me'ikar din, we should agree that everyone should say that b'mezid you aser, b'mezid you aser, because you never really were mevatel properly. B'shoygeg you should not aser because you can't reclaim it. However, but over here, the issue is whether we count in shogiyat mezid. Tosfos speaks out. It doesn't mean literally a knas. It's not a fine. Meaning, are we geyser in the case of shogiyat because of the case of mezid? In the case of mezid, we say that he would answer. By carrying it, he would answer because the bittul was not really a valid bittul. So therefore, Rameir says shogiyat also, in order not to be confused with the case of mezid, and not to assume that even in the case of mezid that would be the case, we have to make it uniform between shoygig and mezid, and therefore we say and therefore we say it has to be uniform, that in both cases he takes it out, he answers it, even though b'shoigeg theoretically he shouldn't, because in mevatl, but here he doesn't. Mar Sabra kansu, so Mar Sabra kansu shoigeg amazit. Mar Sabra Rabbi Huda holds like kansu shoigeg out to mazit. You leave shoigeg the way it is; it doesn't answer, and mazit it does. Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Shmuel plukta the Rabbi Lezer Rabbanan Kamifliki. He disagrees, and he says, like we suggested earlier, that they are arguing in the machlokes of Rabbi Lezer and the Rabbanan. Let's see, right in the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Gamliel, Ma'ase b'tzduki echad mano. So the Mishnah continued and said there was a Ma'ase. Rabbi Gamliel said there was a Ma'ase with the tzduki. Who mentioned the tzduki? Who was talking about the tzduki over here? We were talking about a nachri being mevatel rishus to a nachri. From the Gemara, it's closer, and this is what it means. Tzduki harei kenachri. So we discussed the din of a nachri. Now the Tanakama says Tzduki harei kenachri. At Tzduki, he's a yid, but he doesn't believe in Teresh Baal Peh. So Tanakama says we treat him like a nachri. And therefore, bittul rishus will not help. You cannot be mevatel rishus. But he says no, it's not like a nachri, and you could be mevatel rishus. There's a ma'ase with tzduki shayadar yamana b'mav Yerushalayim who is living with us together. We share the same mav in Yerushalayim. And he said, father said, so he was mevatel rishus. But go ahead and quickly take out your kalim into the movi on Shabbos. So therefore, you will now have a use of the movi, and the tzduki will not be able to retract his bittul. He was mevatel rishus, and according to Rabbi Gamliel, the bittul helps. But he said now on Shabbos, then quickly go ahead and use it, and therefore he will not be able to retract that bittul because you want to make sure that you use it first before he does, and if he uses it first, then he'll be able to retract the bittul and asr on you. Tanya, and we learned this is what we see from the Brisa, the same thing. If a person lives together, if there was a nachri or tzduki or baisusi, and he lives at the Menachalzer, so the Tanakama says they all aser, even the tzduki and the baisusi, they're yidden, they still aser. We treat them like nachrim. Rabbi Gamliel tzduki baisusi and oisim, he says that they don't aser. So you see that this is the machlokes whether we treat the tzduki like and nachri or not. Ma'ase b'tzduki echad shayadarim Rabbi Gamliel b'mav Yerushalayim v'amar lehem Rabbi Gamliel Abanavi said to his sons, Banai miharu v'haitziyim mashatem leitziyim, whatever you'll need for the mavi, quickly take it out. V'hachnisu mashatem machnisan, whatever you want to bring in, quickly go ahead and take it from the mavi and bring it in. Before this disgusting one comes and asers on you, meaning that bittul helps, but if you don't use it first, then he has the right to retract it. So go ahead and quickly use it, and therefore negating his right to retract it. So go ahead and do it before he asers on you. Sharai bittul rishus lachem, and it's mutter for you to use it right now because it was mevatel rishus, and bittul rishus helps with tzduki and baisusi. Divrei Rav Meir. That's how Rav Meir's version, and that's the way we were learning. But Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'loshen acheres, he says no, in a different way. He argues, and he says no, that Rabbi Gamliel agrees with the Tanakam, and he agrees that there's no bittul rishus with tzduki, and he says that bittul rishus doesn't help, and he agrees with the Tanakama that tzduki is like a nochri, and the lotion that he used, mir of asut tzarchechem b'movi, do what you have to do in the movi before Shabbos. Actually, before it becomes Shabbos, and you won't be able to use it because you have a tzduki living over there. And bittul rishus, he cannot be mevatel rishus. So we see that this is the machlokes between Rabbi Gamliel and between the Tanakama, according to Rabbi Meir. And Rabbi Yehuda says that no, they do not argue.